So today is day one of the freedom fight, and every single day it looks like there's some sort of reflection that we were supposed to do. Just came back from church from the upper room, and on my way back I watched the video and was doing some reflections, and one of the reflections was, what kind of race does God have you running? How is that race affected with your addiction to porn or sexual sin? And my answer to that is, God has missions for us. One of those missions is, let's say, multiplying. It is making disciples. It is going out there, planting churches, helping lost sheep find their shepherd. And as I was thinking about that, I was thinking, my God, every single minute that I spend in porn is every single minute that I am spending doing my will instead of His. That is heavy, but I think that is the kick in the butt that I need. So today is day 2 of the freedom fight, which is to not look at porn or do masturbation for 30 days. And the reflection question for today is, what lies are you telling yourself to give you permission to go into sexual sin? And this, I think, can be applied to any sort of addiction, like alcohol, drugs, whatever you name it. So I think one of the lies is, for me, is it's just one time. Who is it gonna harm? I'm just gonna come right back, but it is just that one time. It takes that one time to relapse and let the enemy in. If you think about it like this, how I thought about it right now is, if there is a burglar outside your door and he knocks on your door, he's gonna rob you, you know it. If you open that door one time, that is all it takes for him to, at best, rob you clean, at worst, lose your life. So is that something you're willing to do? So that is something I have to hold myself to. It is not easy, it is not hard, because the consequences isn't that dire. I think we feel that it is not as threatening to our lives, but it is. Just that one argument, that one stronghold prevents us from moving forward. It is the thing that prevents us from keeping stuck. So the one lie that it's just that one time, it's not gonna do anyone harm, it's not gonna do me harm, that is a lie that we have to climb over, get over, we have to destroy. So that's it for day 2 of the freedom fight. So day 3 of the freedom fight, they had us watch a video about this guy that was struggling with sexual sin and porn addiction, Nate. And the lesson of today was really about minimizing sin, because what Nate was telling himself was like, I need a private solution to my private problem, and I only did it so many times. It's not such a big problem, I still have it in control. So he was minimizing his porn addiction when in actuality it was out of control. And the reflection had us admit to ourselves to not minimize our sin by comparison. You can't compare to Nate saying that my porn addiction isn't that bad. Well, end of the day, you still got a porn addiction. You're still watching it. So instead of comparing yourself to someone who might be, a little bit worse than you are or a few steps behind you, compare yourself to the guy in front of you. Compare yourself to the guy who has defeated all sins, all evils in the world, rose from the dead, Jesus. You'll never get to that point, but we can try to get close. There are guys that is closer to Jesus than you are. That's how I'm seeing it. And you should take them as the role model, because they don't watch porn, they don't have sexual sin. So instead of minimizing, comparing to someone that you think you're doing better, then compare yourself to someone you think is doing better than you. So that is day 3. Let's talk about day 4 tomorrow. So day 4, one of our brothers fell and masturbated. So the rest of the brothers are doing a 24-hour fast. 2 of the reflection questions today is how addiction really follows isolation, and how we use porn to medicate the discomforts and pain in life. And when we fall, we do a crash report, and those two questions were answered. And my brother was like, yeah, he didn't reach out to anyone and he was just bored. So those are things that we have to be truthful to ourselves about, because they can lead us back into the devil's grasp. So those are two questions that I would urge anyone watching to think about if they are suffering from the same addiction. So it is day 5 and the fast is almost done. So today's reflection involved a story about this guy named Andrew. He told his pastor about his porn addiction, and the pastor's response to that was, okay, you need spiritual discipline, boundaries, and accountability. Well, for Andrew, that didn't work. So the reason why I think it didn't work is because that's all external. Like, discipline, boundaries, and accountability are all things that come from an external viewpoint. And in the reflection, they told us to read Romans, I believe 7:18-23, which talks about Paul's struggles with his flesh, right? So we got to think about this in a way where we're just not quitting a porn habit. We have to outgrow it. So I faced the same struggles. You know, I had this porn habit of watching too much porn per day and even masturbating multiple times per day. So that was a thing for me. And I find that, you know, defeating that problem is not just saying that I'm gonna quit, or using willpower to say that you're gonna quit. That is not enough. You have to really figure out what's your reason for quitting, because from that reason is where you can find growth. And unless you wanna grow, you're not gonna be able to quit. So we're on day 6 of the freedom fight, which is 30 days without watching any porn or masturbation. And today's reflection is detox, mainly sharing some wisdom that I've read, one of which is if you're in the fight, you're winning. And the win is in the struggle, not in conquering this porn issue forever, because it's going to be a struggle for the rest of your life if you are a man. The question that was posed to me is, if you were offered $1 million to abstain from porn and masturbation for 90 days, will you be able to do it? I think anyone would be motivated to do it. So those are just some food for thought for day 6 in Freedom Fight. See you tomorrow. So it is day 7 of the Freedom Fight, which is a 30-day challenge of no porn, no masturbation. The reflection question of today, it's not really a question, it's to read Matthew 5:29-30, which is, if your right eye causes you to stumble, pluck it out, throw it away. If your right hand causes you to stumble, chop it off and throw it away. Glad I'm a lefty. But jokes aside, I think it is very crucially important that if you have access to social media, like maybe TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, that tempts you because their algorithm is very good at showing you what you want to see. And when I was in the trenches of seeing half-naked girls on Instagram, on TikTok, I knew that algorithm knew me. So I had to basically just delete the apps. And right now I have blockers on my phone and on my computer. I know for one thing that Facebook is the one app and website that will always get me. So Instagram and TikTok, well, TikTok is getting banned tomorrow, so I don't have to worry about it. But those I'm pretty good about. They don't really serve me that content, maybe because I'm really on my business account. But Facebook, I'm usually on my personal account, and they serve me content that I should not see. So really, I have blockers on Facebook right now. So if it doesn't help you, cut it off and throw it away. So that's the reflection for today. So it's day 8 of the Freedom Fight, and the reflection of today is mainly a lesson between the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system in your brain. And it's something that I didn't know. So the prefrontal cortex is responsible for basically your emotions and your logical reasoning, your morals. So it is the brakes in your brain. Whereas the limbic system is the part of their brain that focuses on survival. So when you're masturbating, obviously that's going to be survival and basically passing off your genes to the next generation, right? So your limbic system tricks you into thinking that's a good thing, and it releases dopamine, which encourages you to take more of that action. But at the same time, the release of that dopamine actually overpowers the prefrontal cortex, which means that your morals and your logic gets overpowered by the dopamine and the survival mechanism of the limbic system, which is why we often get stuck in the pleasures of seeking sexual sin, which is watching porn and masturbation. So that is something that I learned today that I did not know. So it is day 9, and today's reflection is the rut. I learned that deer, during mating season, they're easier to kill via, let's say, traffic accidents or by hunters because they're so focused on sex. So they're willing to risk it all. So the same kind of goes for humans. And in today's reflection, 1 Corinthians 6:18, Paul says, flee from all sexual immorality. All other sexual sin comes from outside the body, whereas sexual immorality is done to the person, it's to the body itself. So if you think about it this way, how I'm thinking about it is when it's hurting yourself. That's basically it. And you don't realize it because you have to actively rewire your brain to think that you're hurting yourself. Whereas the limbic system, if you put your hand on a hot stove, you're gonna immediately remove it away thanks to the help of the limbic system. This way, the hot stove, sexual immorality, is the limbic system working against you. So you have to actively think, use your prefrontal cortex to say, okay, this is the hot stove and I gotta stop touching it. So it is day 10 of the Freedom Fight, a 30-day challenge of no porn and no masturbation. Today's reflection is BRACE. That is an acronym for B, breathe deeply, R, remember the truth, which is it's all in the brain, limbic system and your prefrontal cortex. A, ask God for help. C, call accountability. And E, escape relentlessly. So there you have it. You have an acronym that will tell you what to do when you get tempted. And it was something that I had to use this morning because I had a very vivid dream last night and I woke up with a third leg. So I hope that helps you, and I hope this encourages you to keep fighting. So today is day 11 of the Freedom Fight, and the reflection for today is Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what's God's. So, it's 30 days of no porn, no masturbation. So I think that when you really reflect on this verse, it really is to not follow the sheep, not follow what most people do, which is they get obsessed and consumed with porn and masturbation. And once you get off that, you'll be able to refresh your mind. You'll be able to rewire to actually see what your purpose is. And, I did this since the start of the month. So I'm on day 11 with my men's group, but I've been doing this for all of January so far. And it's funny that once you start abstaining from watching porn or masturbation, your mind actually gets more clear. You actually become more locked in. So it is hard, I know, for men these days, especially with temptations all around the internet. You gotta lock off your screens, you gotta be diligent, you gotta call your accountability partner when you think you're gonna fall. But once you're able to do that and you're not following the crowd, you'll be able to see that you'll be able to lock in more and gain more clarity. And I am curious to see what will happen 3 months, 6 months from now. Hopefully I make it that far. So cross your fingers, pray for me if you can, and I'll pray for you if you're fighting in the same journey. So tune in for tomorrow because tomorrow is day 12. We're almost halfway there. So today is day 12 of the Freedom Fight, 30 days without porn or masturbation. And the reflection for today is Timothy 4:7-8. And the reflection is Train yourself to be godly, for physical training is of some value, but godliness has value in all things, holding promise for both the present life and the life to come. So how I think about it is we have multiple things to train. We have body, mind, soul, and heart. And while going to the gym can train your body, it doesn't train your mind, soul, and heart. You need to train those in a different way. No matter how much you lift, if you don't train the body, soul, and heart, or the mind, soul, and heart, if you're a jackass, you're gonna stay a jackass. So that is not going to fare well if you have a goal of raising kids right, or attracting the right partner, or attracting the good in life. Because I think you need the mind, the soul, and the heart to be right, to be trained, in order for you to become a godly person that attracts all the things you want in life to you. So that's something that I've been trying to do, albeit I don't know if I'm doing it successfully or not, but this freedom fight is just another step. It's just another dumbbell that I have to keep on lifting in order to train the mind, heart, and soul. So why don't you reflect that and let me know in the comments what you think. So it is day 13 of the freedom fight, and today's reflection is a simple SAST, which is a sexual addiction screening test. I'm going to leave a link in the bottom so you can check yourself if you have sexual addiction. I think if you score more than 7, then you have some sort of sexual addiction that you should probably figure out. But aside from that, this is going to be a real short one because a brother of ours fell. He caved last night, so we're going to be doing a 24-hour fast. So I'm just getting lunch ready, and I'm gonna have lunch in like 2 hours, and after that I'm getting my fast for 24 hours. So we are on day 14 of the freedom fight, and today the reflection, we were taught 4 stages in a cycle that actually causes you to fall when you're fighting against those dark temptations. And it really starts at fantasy, routine, acting out, and then shame. So one of the issues that I had in the past is I would scroll Instagram or Facebook, and that algorithm knows me very well, and it would serve up a lot of scantily dressed women, and that would always trigger a fantasy, and that fantasy would always trigger me to go into a rabbit hole to look into more promiscuous content, which leads to me acting off or rubbing one out. And then that would lead me to shame because I promised myself that I don't want to do this anymore. Yet here I am. I go on Instagram or go on Facebook. The algorithm knows me so well that it serves me content that draws my attention, goes into that trap, that rabbit hole, which brings me ultimately to shame. So a lot of guys might have different routines or fantasies that they might fall into. So the goal for today was to find out what your fantasy is, which leads to your routine, which leads to you acting out, which leads to shame. So try that exercise for yourself. So today is day 15 of the freedom fight, and the reflection for today is who's your master. So we're reflecting on Romans 6:16. Don't you know that when you offer yourself as a slave, you are obedient to the one you obey, whether the one you obey is sin, which leads to death, or to obedience, which leads to righteousness. So I want you to sit and think about that. I want you to sit and also think about what are the basics that you practice. Like football players practice tackling, what is one thing that you practice? Remember what we talked about yesterday. Remember what we talked about with the fantasy, the routine, the acting out, and then the shame. And what really triggers you to look at porn, to look at masturbating? For me, it was Instagram or Facebook, so I had to lock those down. But what are yours? Let me know in the comments below. So day 16 is going to be pretty quick. We have the acronym BLASSTED, which stands for bored, lonely, anxious, stressed, self-doubting, ticked off, exhausted, and depressed. So any one of these emotions usually lead us to go back into fantasy mode and gets us in that flywheel, which ultimately gets us to act out and then fall into shame again, right? So you really have to keep in check about your emotions and recognize when you're feeling these emotions, recognizing it's okay, and practicing grace. All right, so day 17 of the freedom fight. I'm just gonna do a short reflection because it is short. Today's reflection is emotional intelligence. And what that means is to do your daily check-ins. If you have accountability partners, make sure to check in with your accountability partner. Check in with how you feel during the day, because that creates a habit, and just creating that habit will help you manage, will help you from falling back into the cycle of fantasy, routine, acting out, and shame. So make sure to do your check-in today. So today is day 18, and the reflection for today is relapse and reality. The reality is that you're probably gonna relapse, and if you relapse, what you have to do is confess. Confess to God, confess to your accountability partner, and when you confess, you also have to repent, because if you're not serious about it, if you do not repent, that means that you're not committed to this. And when you're not committed to this, then what's the point of doing the challenge, right? And when you do relapse, once you relapse, the most important thing is to don't binge, because once you binge, that's when you give up on yourself, and that is when you will start going down the rabbit hole of fantasy, routine, acting out, and then shame, which is what we don't want. You're destroying the progress you've already made. I mean, if you relapse one, it doesn't mean you're not making progress. You are making progress. You went that many days, that many weeks, that many months of not diving into sexual sin or watching porn or masturbating. So it is now day 19, and we'll start with a verse of Romans 8:1, which says, "There is now no condemnation for those who are in Jesus Christ." So the reflection for today is walk by faith. And basically what that means is to just have faith. So a short story. When I tried to quit porn in the past without Christ, I never really succeeded. I'd go on for a couple of days or a couple of weeks, but never months, and I always relapsed. But now, when I'm doing this with my brothers in the freedom fight, when I'm doing this challenge, I am coming up on a month, and there has been no strong urge to relapse, which I always had to fight against when I was doing it by myself, when I didn't have faith in Christ. So I feel that if you really want to get this handled, you have to do it for a reason that is bigger than yourself. Because, like I said, in the past, I did it for myself, and I never got anywhere. So this time, what's different is I'm doing it for more than myself. I'm doing it for the brothers who are struggling with the same addictions, and whenever any one of us falls, relapse, which is watch porn or masturbation, then we all have to fast, right? Fast for 24 hours. I love eating. I hate fasting. So that is something that, I don't want to relapse for fear of making my brothers suffer. So in that case, you just have to have faith that there is something bigger than yourself that holds you back when you're next to the edge of relapsing. So the reflection of today is to just walk by faith. And if you don't have faith, well, I guess it's time to start finding some. So it is day 20 of the freedom fight. And what I learned today is the Stockdale Paradox. So the idea goes that when you have optimism and reality does not meet the expectation of what you think you'll be, you're gonna give up. With pessimism, if you take a look at reality and it gives you no hope, you're gonna give up. But with the Stockdale Paradox, what you're gonna do is you're gonna confront reality, and then you're gonna also have persevering faith that you're gonna prevail in the end. So with regards to porn, if you have super optimism that you are going to conquer porn and never do it again, then when you relapse, you're gonna give up. Or if you try to go do this porn thing, give up porn, and you relapse on the first day, there's no hope. You're gonna give up. And I found myself doing this as well. The reality is that every single day is going to be a fight. And the goal of giving up porn or masturbation, every single day, I'm going to have to take up my sword and go and fight. And that helps me keep going. And that helps me persevere that I will prevail in the end. So without knowing it, I was engaging in the Stockdale Paradox. And here's a little bit of statistics that I've learned today. For people without a sexual addiction, it takes around, they say, 6 to 18 months to actually kick the desire to watch porn or masturbate. For those with porn addiction, it takes 24 months or 2 years. So that's something to keep in mind. If you manage to abstain for a month, I mean, that is a great job in and of itself, but you still gotta count it as, all right, I gotta do this the month after this month, and the month after this month, and the month after this month. So if you're on this journey, keep on with the fight. You're doing great. Don't give up. Face reality, persevere, and prevail. So good morning. It is a very early morning, and I just came from my Christian support group, but it's day 21 of the Freedom Fight. This one is gonna be a short one. So the reflection for today is fixing porn addiction is gonna be the longest fight. It's the most challenging as well. And the reflection is that only 5% of people can actually get instantaneous solution, instantaneous fix. The rest of us, normal people, it's gonna take about 2 years. It's gonna be a long, drawn out battle. And you're probably gonna relapse, let's be honest. You're probably going to fall. But the point is that you get back up and you continue fighting. Because the thing about porn versus anything else, drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, is that I think that porn is the most shameful. That is why we don't talk about it. And we don't talk about it, we can't get help. So it's one of the biggest things that holds us back. And until you can say to yourself, all right, I have a problem, then you're not gonna get that fixed. And that's why I think it's one of the biggest challenges out there. So it's 6 a.m. in the morning and it is day 22. The reflection for today is to win the battle. And what that means is you have to avoid worldly media. That is all the things that trigger you, whether porn sites. For me, it's Instagram and Facebook. Well, mostly Facebook. My Instagram is locked down, but you know, Facebook always shows these little videos that show a little bit of cleavage, and that brings you down rabbit holes. So avoid worldly media, captivate your lustful thoughts. What I mean by that is, well, not to captivate, but to take them captive. When you have thoughts of girls in bikinis, maybe, that might lead you down a rabbit hole to go search for something that you shouldn't be searching for. Happened to me a lot in the past. Third is avoid negative self-talk. Saying that you can't do it is at the window. You gotta get that shit out of here because you can do it. Don't have such weak willpower, but make it so that your willpower is supported by what you think you can do instead of what you think you can't do. And lastly, rationalizations. You know, when you're saying, oh, maybe I'm looking at her, but she's not fully nude. That doesn't mean anything. It means that what you're gonna do is you're gonna search for full nude, hardcore, missionary position, the next thing you're gonna do, right? So even if she engages your mind a little bit, that is going to lead you down what we talked about in the beginning, worldly thoughts, right? So you gotta stop with the rationalizations because even a small thing can break into a big thing. So those is what I learned today for day 22. Thought it was gonna be short, but guess not. So it is day 23 of the Freedom Fight, and the reflection for today is spiritual warfare, more specifically deception. I was lying in bed yesterday, and when I lie in bed, my thoughts tend to run away from me. I don't know if you get that too, but my thoughts run away. I roll around in bed. And one of the thoughts that I had was deception, which is, I'm a Christian. And the thought that ran through my head was prostitution. Now, I've never done it before, but something, I don't know what it was pulling me to that thought. What if I tried it? I mean, I'm on day 23. I'm backed up. I am trying to control and redirect my sexual urges. I'm a guy. And when you lie in bed trying to get to sleep, those thoughts just run through your head on how to get a release. So when that happens, you have to take captive your thoughts, which is one of the reflections today. And luckily, I recognized that, all right, I'm being deceived by the enemy here while I was lying in bed. So what I did is, all right, this is crazy. The Bible said your body is the temple. Why would you take your body and go and bathe in poison like that? So that and a lot of deep breathing, because remember what day it was, but we learned the idea of brace, right? Took a deep breath and just tried to remember the truth. I didn't call anyone. I asked God for help. That definitely happened. I didn't call anyone because I was in bed and I didn't want to wake anyone up. And I tried to escape the temptation, and I did that successfully. So today's reflection is spiritual warfare. You will be attacked. That is for sure. The devil will try to deceive you and get you off your path. So I hope you buckle up, armor up, have your sword of the spirit with you, and be ready to fight the enemy. So day 24 and day 25 of the freedom fight, which is 30-day challenge without porn or masturbation. So I forgot to do day 24, so I'm putting them both into one video. It's pretty short anyways, both of them. So the first one, day 24, was what is the opposite of addiction? And the opposite of that is connection, because you really can't do this sort of challenge without a brotherhood or a sisterhood. You need someone there to help you, to help pick you up when you're down, when you fall. And I think that is what really is driving the success in our group, because I'm doing this not alone. I'm doing this with a men's group, a Christian brothers support group that I meet every Saturdays. And that really brings us into day 25, right? That is today. And that's winning as a team. So those kind of go hand in hand, because without a team, you're not gonna win. There's no I in team, and that is especially so when you're facing Satan in this battle for freedom. You are going to fall. And if you fall, you need someone to pick you up. You also need to be truthful and vulnerable. And when someone else is vulnerable to you, I find that actually inspires you, that actually motivates you. It's something about guys. When you hear another guy say, I struggle with porn, something inside you will say, yeah, I also have that struggle, or I'm struggling with that now. And the both of you seeing that it's not only a problem that you yourself is facing alone, because a lot of us guys think that it's a problem that we're facing alone. It's not. A lot of guys faces the same problem. That just gives you the strength that, all right, if he's going through this and he can deal with it, then I can too. So that's just the reflection for these 2 days. The opposite of addiction is connection, and you have got to have a team when you're going through this challenge. So we're on day 26. There are 3 more days until the challenge is done, and I've started my fast because one of our brothers fell again, and I think he beat off. So whenever a brother beat off or looks at porn, we're gonna have to fast for 24 hours. So the reflection for today, for day 26, is shame. They give a little bit of a story about the prince and the dragon, which is an interesting story. You can search it up because I'm not gonna go through the entire story here. But it really touched on shame and temptation. So let me touch on the story a little bit. So the prince had a great time flying with this dragon in the story, and he's not supposed to do that. that was the temptation, but he kept going back until people found out. And the king eventually asked who else flew on the dragon, because the prince thought that this was it, this was done. He can't admit that he fell into the temptation again and again, that he was trapped. So I think that is what a lot of guys deal with right now, right? We have a dependency on porn. It's hard to run from. It's hard to get out of it. I suffered through the same thing. And at any day, I know that you could relapse and you go back to watching and getting into sexual sin and doing some very bad behaviors that you shouldn't do. So it takes a real winner to actually admit that they have this trouble, but shame really holds them back. So to really make progress on this, you really have to admit the shame, and you'll be surprised that there's a lot more people out there that probably struggle through the same thing that you do. So day 27, we are continuing our talk about shame. So shame is the fuel for porn addiction, and it also serves as medication. It's that one thing where they did a study of 4,000 men and women, and they found that shame was the one thing that was holding them back. So if you want to get a hold of sexual sin, porn addiction, masturbation, you have to break through the power of shame. And it's hard to do because the more you don't talk about it, you keep it inside you, and you don't find a team to help you through that, a team that supports you through that, then you're just gonna keep languishing in the same addiction of shame. You're gonna talk to yourself and tell yourself that you're a lost cause. And because of that, you're just gonna wallow in that shame and keep on repeating the same unwanted behaviors that you're trying to break out of. So I want you to give that a thought and find a way to break out of shame. And you know, the best way to do that is through community. So it is day 28 of the freedom fight, 30 days without watching porn or masturbation. I feel like I'm getting ahead with these videos because the reflection for today is confessing your shame. I've already talked about it yesterday, kind of, because I was saying how to really beat the porn addiction, you have to get over the shame of telling someone about it. You have to end up telling someone about it to take away the power that shame has over you, because shame always gets you back to watching porn or masturbating. And I tried that. I tried doing this on my own many times in the past. Like, I'm not gonna watch porn, I'm not gonna masturbate. Always ended up doing the action because I had shame. And I never told anyone about it until, you know, this past year when I met this group, and now we're doing this challenge. But anyways, I also want to make the confession, perfect time as ever, that the last time I watched porn and masturbated was, I still remember it. It was December 31st, 2024, so New Year's. So that is one thing. There is still another thing that I'm dealing with, which is people look down on you, I feel, in the Christian circle. Let me put down my coffee because it's burning my hand. And that is because I'm a relatively new Christian, like 1.5 years old, and there's something I still struggle to get a hold of, and that still doesn't really make sense to me, because a lot of Christians are like, all right, there is no sex before marriage. Premarital sex is a big no-no. And I come from 32 years of atheism. So I'm thinking, there is so much risk to marrying someone without having sex and without moving in with them. Because another thing that a lot of Christians do is like, you don't live together until we're married. Right now, it still makes absolutely no sense to me. A lot of brothers at the circle that I'm going to, that I'm doing this challenge with right now, I feel they practice the same thing. I don't know if I could do that, actually. Just honestly, And that's one of the things that I feel kind of push people away from Christ, is that when they do these actions, instead of being encouraged to, take this step by step, it's a journey. You're not gonna become a hero at day one. I feel like a lot of Christians, what they do is, yo man, because you're not doing this, that's wrong and that's shameful. And I keep spilling coffee over my wrist. So my mom had this Christian lady that came by, and she bought in when I was before I was a teen. And I always felt shame from that Christian lady that came over to read the Bible to my mom, to talk about theology. And I'm sure she was doing that out of the good of her heart. But when she looked at us, because my dad and my brother and I didn't buy into all this God stuff back then, I always felt she gave us this look of shame. So I would say that, wherever you are, whether you believe in God or not, take things step by step. And to anyone who shames you, saying that you're not doing it right, you're only gonna hear this once from me. Fuck them, just fuck them. Get them the fuck out of your life, because they're just negative Nancy's. So that's my position, and I know that this is gonna rattle a lot of Christians who are like, oh, you shouldn't get married, or you shouldn't have sex before you're married, or you shouldn't move in together before you're married. Yo man, I'm just taking this step by step, day by day. I know that God will forgive me, but I have to take this step by step. It's something that I struggle with, and I think that that's the same thing with a lot of people addicted to porn. I mean, if you're gonna watch porn, if you're gonna beat off, we're gonna fast for you, because that's what we said we'll do. It's a tough struggle, been through it, still going through it right now. Every single day is a battle. So yeah, this reflection has just turned into a rant, and I feel like I'm not providing any value. But anyways, that is the reflection for today. Hope to see you tomorrow. So today is day 29. The reflection for today is faith and diligence. So I'm coming out of church, and there's gonna be this night of worship and prayer for men who are dealing with sexual sin. And this ties into today's reflection, because there's a spectrum. On one end, we're praying that we won't fall into porn again or masturbation. On one end, we're just gonna brute force this stuff. Through sheer willpower, we're not gonna watch porn, masturbate, dive into any kind of sexual sin. So those are the two spectrums. And let me tell you, none of them work. Both of them don't work. If you do one of them alone, if you're gonna try to do this through sheer willpower, you're gonna fail. If you're gonna pray, bro, I think you're gonna fail. And with this church, I'm probably gonna leave, because I don't agree with prayer helps, but you need both prayer and willpower. When the prayers aren't working, you're gonna need willpower. When the willpower isn't working, you're gonna need prayer. That's how I've been going with this, and it's been pretty successful. On top of that, you also need to have that community, like we've been talking about, in order to get this handled. So that is where the faith comes in. That is where diligence comes in, because you could think of it as diligence as willpower, and faith as prayer. So using both, that will give you a better chance at surviving sexual sin and not falling into it. So it's day 30 of the freedom fight, which was a fight to not consume any porn or do any masturbation with a group of guys I meet every Saturday at a Christian support group. So my reflections on this, well, I've been doing a reflection every day, and the reflection from the app, from the program that we did, was that you can really only call yourself free if you've been able to do it for 2 years. So we got a month done, so that's 23 months. And I'm not even gonna lie to you, it is hard to do. And I've been listening to a podcast this morning while I was working out, who are the guys that founded Quitter, which is a phone app, I believe. I haven't used it. And they were just saying how many Gen Z guys are suffering with this problem. Problem is that nobody is talking about it because there's so much shame associated with it. And you know, some of the things like yesterday or the day before, I made a confession, and that was hard to do. So that shame keeps us down, and this affects everything around us. I mean, it affects our inspiration because when you jack off after you feel good about yourself, after you got your short-term dopamine hit, what usually happens is you just slug down in your chair and then you just don't want to do anything. I've experienced that countless times before. Or you are afraid to go talk to that girl because, you know, you don't have that urge coming from testosterone, coming from having released for a long time to go actually talk to that girl, meet her, and try to get some. So that's what porn and masturbation does, right? And on a spiritual side, you know, lust is sin and you don't want to do that. So there's many reasons to get off it, and the biggest problem is that it's just so hard to free yourself because the internet has made it easy. We have OnlyFans, Pornhub. Access is just a click away. You can access it on your phone because your phone is a supercomputer and you can watch that anywhere at any time. So doing this program, I had my phone locked down and my computer basically locked down, other than Twitter. Twitter is a tough one, social media, because I use that for business and building my brand as well, like YouTube. My YouTube is pretty clean in that only business and educational stuff and podcasts comes that way. So, but Twitter is a cesspool for that stuff, and I really had to watch where I went. Yesterday was the Super Bowl, and interesting thing, Kanye West, I heard, started posting porn on his account. What makes you want to do is, wow, a celebrity start posting this stuff. You want to go see, right? So that's the thing, you gotta hold yourself back. Talked about willpower yesterday. That's what you need willpower for, and I'm not free, guys. Let's be clear. There was in the back of my head, I talked about this with some brothers from my support group, and I was like, you know, at the back of my head, I want to sin. And I don't think that's ever gonna go away. I think that I will always want to sin because I was born into this world as a sinner. And, you know, by the grace of God, I found Jesus. And, you know, it's not a spiritual preaching thing, but I think you have to have something bigger, whether you believe in the universe or spiritual or anything, God, Allah. You just need something bigger in order to help you get through the times when willpower is not enough. So it was a mix of both willpower and spirituality, trying to remember the truth, what I'm trying to do, and how this affects everything around me. Through this past month, the reflection has really been that I have gotten so locked in. I've never been this locked in before. Been focused. After the second week, I could see the change in my mind, that my thinking has become less cloudy, and that's something that I want to continue, right? And this sort of stuff, if you don't get a handle, it's going to affect everything around you, like your relationships with your partner. I had one brother who his wife left him because he couldn't escape from the addiction to porn and masturbation, and that's unfortunate. So that's pretty much all I really wanted to talk about today. I think it's really something that's worthwhile to do, and it really makes you feel like a warrior, even when you're lying in bed late at night and you're like, man, I want to sin. I want to go watch some pron, or I want to go jerk off. And then you think to yourself in your head, I am a warrior. I've been in this fight for so long, I'm not gonna let it defeat me. And it gives you a sense of strength, a sense of masculinity.
And it's a really great feeling. And that's something that you don't want to betray yourself by consuming things that are not good for you. That's not going to say that I'm never going to fall. I don't know what the future holds. I am susceptible to attacks. I've done a video like this before, but I fell again. But I think the moral of the story is don't give up on yourself. Don't let the shame defeat you. Always get back up and keep on fighting. That's not just for porn and masturbation, but for everything in life that pushes against you, that kicks you and beats you up and brings you down. Always get back up and fight again.